This festive Yule log cake is a tender chocolate sponge cake filled with mascarpone whipped cream and frosted with a whipped chocolate ganache. It's delicious and made completely from scratch. And today I'm going to give you all my tips for how to make it beautiful, how to have a crack-free roll, and how to make it perfect for your holiday table. Hi, I'm Lindsay from Life, Love, and Sugar, and today we're making a Yule log cake. Alright, so to get started, we're going to set up our cake pan. This is a 12 by 17, and we're going to line it with parchment paper. There are lots of different approaches to this. Often people turn it out onto like a towel coated in powdered sugar. I don't really love that method. It's super messy, and I don't think it necessarily works better. So we're going to use parchment paper, which by nature is non-stick, and you want to make sure you have some sticking up around the edges because we're going to use it to lift our cake out of the pan after it bakes and actually roll it up in the parchment paper. All right, we'll set that aside and make our cake batter. All right, we're going to add our all-purpose flour. This is 100% Dutch cocoa. I think that the extra flavor it gives the cake is really nice. Baking powder and salt. We'll set this aside and work on our wet ingredients. So next we'll add our sugar and our egg yolks. We're actually going to keep our egg whites aside and whip those later. We'll go ahead and combine this a little bit. It will kind of clump up a bit, and that's fine. All right, now we will add our sour cream, vanilla extract, and melted butter. And now we will add our dry ingredients. Now this does get pretty thick. That's okay. All right, so once all that is combined, we'll set this aside and whip up our egg whites. So you will know that you reach stiff peaks when you can lift your whisk out and it kind of keeps a stiff peak there. All right, so this is a pretty thick batter so far. So we are going to add about 1/3 of the egg whites to our batter, just to kind of help thin it out a bit. All right, so with that mostly combined, we are going to go ahead and add the rest and fold these in. You want to be careful just to gently fold them into the batter, because if you kind of stir too vigorously or something, you're going to deflate the egg whites. All right, so now that we have our batter made, we're going to go ahead and put it into our cake pan. And now we can spread it all the way to the edges. Now that we have it evenly spread into our pan, we're going to pop it in the oven for about 10 minutes. Okay, so we have our hot cake straight out of the oven. We are going to lift it, move it out of the pan, and now it's time to roll it. So you could trim some of this off if you want to, but I usually just leave it. Fold that over and start rolling. Now you don't have to make it too tight of a roll. It is hot, so be careful. All right, and just roll it up. Now, to help it not crack, I actually like to unroll it a few times during the cooling process just to keep it from getting too firm in one position. So as soon as I roll it up, I actually roll it right back out. And you want to do it slowly, keep a real close eye on it, make sure nothing's sticking and therefore creating a crack. And we are looking good. So you can roll it back up. And then I actually do it again. And this time I will actually let it sit for maybe 5 minutes, and then I'll unroll it again. And I'll keep doing that every 5 to 10 minutes after that until it kind of starts to be a little more cool. It may not be fully cool, but it'll be cooler and less likely to crack once it does fully cool. So we're gonna let it sit. So to make our filling, we're gonna start with our cold, heavy whipping cream. We'll add some powdered sugar. That'll help stabilize the whipped cream and sweeten it a little bit. Vanilla extract, and just a touch of salt. Pop this on our mixer and whip it until it starts to have soft peaks. All right, so this is starting to thicken nicely. We're gonna go ahead and add our mascarpone cheese. So if this gets to be too warm, it can actually start to separate, and then it'll kind of get watery and it'll mess up your filling. So you want it to still be kind of chilled, but not super cold and firm. You can see this is still nice and creamy, even though it's still kind of cool. And it definitely isn't separating or anything yet. So that's about the texture and consistency you want when you add it to your whipped cream. So we'll go ahead and add this to the mixer. And now we'll keep whipping until we have stiff peaks. All right, so you should see that it's nice and thick, holds on to your whisk attachment really well. It's stiff and ready to go. Okay, so now we want to take our fully cooled cake roll and roll it out. You want to be slow and steady. You can use a spatula or something to help it release if you need to. So I'm lifting up a little bit on the parchment paper before I roll it out, just to give it a chance to release and hopefully not create any tears. All right, now we're ready to fill our cake roll. I'm gonna go ahead and push this up into the center of the roll first, and then we'll spread it evenly over the rest of the roll. All right, let's roll it back up. I'm gonna wipe off a little bit of this excess filling, and then I'm gonna wrap this up in some clear wrap and pop it in the fridge for about an hour for it to set and firm up before we frost it. So while your Yule log is chilling in the fridge and firming up a bit, it's a good time to make your ganache that you'll use for the whipped frosting. It needs some time to sit as well and come to room temperature, so you might as well let the cooling and chilling and all of that happen at the same time. So grab your semi-sweet chocolate, add your heavy whipping cream. This should be nice and hot. And then we'll let this sit for a few minutes, and then we'll whisk it until it's nice and smooth. All right, so there's our chocolate ganache. We're gonna set this aside and let it cool to room temperature. All right, so when your chocolate ganache is at room temperature or slightly cooler, we're gonna add it to our bowl so that we can whip it. All right, so you'll notice that it will be lighter in color, and it will hold shape a little bit, but it won't be like super thick. It's still gonna be fairly soft. That's okay, because it'll firm up in the fridge after we frost our cake. So let's grab our chilled Yule log. All right, I'm gonna take my large serrated knife and cut a little part of it off to make the little second log piece. You wanna cut on a diagonal. And then you can use a little bit of the ganache to kind of seal this. And now we're just gonna finish frosting it. And then if you want to kind of smooth out, like this is nice and kind of smooth because it was cut, and these are a little more rough, so you can trim those if you want to kind of smooth all the sides out. And there you have it, your final Yule log cake, ready for your holiday party or your Christmas dinner or whatever it's for. It is going to be a hit. It is so good. That moist chocolate cake with the mascarpone whipped cream and the light whipped frosting is terrific. You are going to love it. For the full recipe, head over to lifeloveandsugar.com.